Hey, folks, welcome to Phantoms and Monsters Radio. Now, Arizona is a land of extremes. Its crowded cities give way to isolated highways, immense deserts, volcanic fields, rugged mountains, reservation land, forgotten ponds and abandoned structures, and vast stretches of darkness where a person can travel for miles without encountering another human being. Now, for generations, witnesses throughout Arizona have reported unexplained lights, mysterious aircraft, cryptid animals, strange humanoids, enormous winged figures, and entities that seem to defy any conventional explanation. So tonight, we will examine 8 disturbing eyewitness accounts from across the state. These reports include an enormous wolf-like animal seen along the southwestern Arizona highway, a massive hairy humanoid that chased a moving car, an unidentified aquatic predator near an old fish hatchery, a centaur-like being east of Flagstaff, a flying humanoid over Laveen, 2 possible Skinwalker encounters near the Navajo Nation, and a daylight UFO landing outside Buckeye involving apparent non-human occupants. Several eyewitnesses used culturally specific terms, including Skinwalker, to describe what they believe they encountered. Those descriptions represent the witnesses' personal interpretations. They should not be understood as definitive statements about Navajo beliefs, traditions, or ceremonial practices. These stories remain unverified eyewitness accounts. Some may have natural explanations. Others may involve misidentification, folklore, psychological interpretation, or phenomena that just remains unknown. Listen carefully, consider the details, and decide for yourself. This is Unexplained, Arizona. Now, our first report begins in a small border town in southwestern Arizona. The witnesses were a young couple who had spent the evening driving around, listening to music and talking. At approximately 1 o'clock in the morning, they decided to return home. Now, what they encountered beside the road left both of them deeply disturbed. The witness states, "I live in a small border town in southwestern Arizona. There's not much to do around here, so one of the ways people pass the time is just by driving around, listening to music and talking. Now, about a week before I submitted this report, My girlfriend and I went on a date. Now, afterward, we continued cruising around until approximately 1 o'clock in the morning. Eventually, we decided to call it a night, and I started driving her home. Now, as we traveled along the road, we both noticed an enormous four-legged animal standing near the shoulder with its back towards us. Its fur looked coarse and unkempt, with a dark grayish coloration. Because mountain lions are occasionally seen in the region, my first thought was that it might have been an unusually large or possibly injured cougar. I slowed the car down so we could get a better look. That was when the animal turned around and faced us. The moment I saw its head, I knew it was no mountain lion. It had the most ferocious and terrifying face I'd ever seen. Its muzzle was long and narrow, similar to that of a wolf. Its mouth was open, exposing several large, sharp-looking teeth. The creature appeared to be hunched over, causing its back to rise prominently. The fur along the body was standing on end, much like a frightened or threatened cat. When the headlights struck its face, its eyes reflected a bright orange color. There was something especially disturbing about its expression. Although the eyes glowed in the headlights, it appeared dead and lifeless. I did not wait to see what it would do next, so I stepped on the accelerator and got us away from the area as quickly as possible. Now, for several moments, neither of us spoke. We were both in shock. Finally, I asked my girlfriend whether she had actually seen the creature or whether it was something I was imagining. She confirmed that she had seen it. Without being prompted, she gave the same description that I had: a massive wolf-like animal with rough, dark gray fur, a long muzzle, large teeth, hunched posture, and orange reflecting eyes. Now, afterward, I began researching wolves native to Arizona. However, the animal we encountered seemed far larger and more physically imposing than any wolf, coyote, or domestic dog I'd ever seen. Its size, appearance, and overall presence did not seem natural. And to this day, my girlfriend and I remain amazed and deeply unsettled by what we witnessed beside the road. We still do not know what it was. Was it an unusually large natural animal, an undocumented predator, a cryptid, or something with a more supernatural origin? There's not enough evidence to make a definitive determination. I will leave that question for the audience to decide. Now, the couple's decision to slow down gave them a better view, but it also brought them closer to something they just couldn't identify. Our next witnesses were also traveling along an isolated road at night. Their encounter, however, did not end when they drove past the creature. It began chasing them. Now, this encounter reportedly occurred sometime in the late 1970s. The witness was a teenager returning from a party with her boyfriend. They were driving along a deserted country road near the backside of a lake. Now, the surrounding area consists of cattails, brush, scattered farms, and numerous curves that prevented them from traveling at high speed. So the witness states, my boyfriend and I were driving home late at night after attending a party. We were traveling along a deserted country road near the backside of a lake. There were no homes along the particular stretch of road, and because the roadway contained numerous sharp curves, we just could not travel very fast. So as we rounded one of these bends, we suddenly saw an enormous creature standing beside the road. It was approximately 8 feet tall and completely covered in hair. Now, at the time, I knew nothing about Bigfoot. I had never seriously considered that such a creature might exist, so I had no way to process what I was seeing. Now, my first thought was that it appeared to be part human and part ape, and what I wondered whether it could be someone wearing a costume. But it was far too large, and what happened next made that explanation seem impossible. My boyfriend immediately shouted, "Lock the doors, lock the doors." The car had manual door locks. I quickly locked the door beside me, but I was so terrified that I couldn't turn around to lock the rear passenger door. I was completely frozen, and as the car continued through the curve, the creature began running beside us. We were traveling at approximately 45 miles per hour, yet it had no difficulty keeping pace. It was only a few feet from my window, matching the speed of the car while reaching toward the door handle. It appeared to be trying to open the door. My boyfriend kept shouting that we needed to get away, but because of the bends in the road, we just could not immediately accelerate. Now, for several terrifying moments, the creature remained directly beside the car. And when the road finally straightened, my boyfriend stepped on the accelerator. We tore away from the area as quickly as possible and eventually left the creature behind. Neither of us could believe what had happened. The entire encounter felt like a nightmare, but we both had seen the same thing. And when I arrived home, I told my family about the incident. My sister immediately said, "It was a Bigfoot. It was a Bigfoot." Until that moment, the possibility had never occurred to me. I had simply been trying to understand what kind of massive human-like animal would emerge from the woods, chasing a car in an attempt to open the door. I was later asked whether I had seen the creature's face. And when we first rounded the curve, the car slowed beside it, and the creature was standing nearly eye to eye with me. But I was so frightened that I just couldn't focus on the facial features. Once it began chasing us, I could think only about escaping. I could not even turn around to lock the rear door. The creature was running beside the car only a few feet away, reaching toward the handle. And my boyfriend kept saying, "We have to get out of here. This is horrible." You never expect to encounter something like that, especially in an isolated country road in the middle of the night. But whatever it was real. And it's something I have never forgotten. Now, the creature in that account displayed speed, intelligence, and apparent interest in gaining access to the witness's vehicle. Now, our next report also describes an unidentified animal that seems unusually intelligent. This creature did not chase a car. It followed two people through the darkness as they attempted to escape from an isolated mountain pond. Now, a woman and her fiance were night fishing in the mountains of Arizona at an old fish hatchery that had been converted into privately owned ponds. They had only been there a few minutes when something began moving through the vegetation around them. The witness states, "My fiance and I live in the mountains of Arizona, and we went night fishing at an old fish hatchery that is now privately owned. We had only been there for a couple of minutes when we began hearing something rustling around the pond next to us. At first, I thought it was an elk. We had been there several days earlier and had seen tracks in the mud along the shore. Now, my fiance was concerned that it might be something else, so he built a fire in an attempt to scare it away. Now, after a while, the rustling stopped and we relaxed. Not long afterward, we heard an enormous splash from a neighboring pond. We wondered whether a mountain lion or bear had jumped into the water trying to catch fish. That explanation did not seem especially likely, but we could not think of anything else. We heard no additional splashing. Later, there was another huge splash, this time in our pond. I could not see where it came from or what had caused it. I was beginning to feel extremely uncomfortable. The fire was dying and I wanted to leave, but my fiance wanted to continue fishing. We heard more rustling in the reeds near us. Suddenly, my fiance began packing her equipment. He extinguished the fire and told me that he was ready to leave. Now, our car was parked near the highway. To reach it, we had to walk along a dirt road, cross a meadow, past several other ponds, and climb over a gate. Now, as we walked, my fiance repeatedly looked back behind us. Each time he looked back, he began walking faster. He told me that he thought there was a bear near the ponds. I was frightened and refused to look behind us. But by the time we were nearing the car, I was almost jogging to keep up with him. He kept saying, "Once we get over the gate, we'll be fine." When we finally reached the car, he continued staring across the meadow. He remained nervous until we were driving away. I asked whether he had seen a bear. He replied, "I don't know what it was, but it wasn't a bear." Then he described the animal he had seen standing near the pond. He said it was approximately the size of a bear, but it resembled a combination of a dog and a crocodile. The creature appeared scaly and had eyes that were almost entirely black. He said the animal looked directly at him and seemed to be studying him. He felt that it was extremely intelligent. As we were leaving the ponds, we first saw it sitting on the top of the hill watching us. The next time he looked, it had moved down the hill. And after that, he saw it in the field, still following us. Now, the final time he looked, it was walking along the road behind us. He said it moved the way a cat moves when stalking its prey. That was when he began talking about reaching the gate. He was also concerned because our lantern was beginning to dim. I had never seen him so frightened. When we returned home, he searched online for reports of large alligator-like dogs and found references to a creature sometimes called doyachu. The descriptions seemed remarkably similar to what my fiance had described. We also wondered whether the second splash in our pond might be the cause of another creature. My parents suggested returning in daylight to search for tracks, but my fiance refused. He swore that he'd never go back there again. Now, I know this story sounds unbelievable. I also know that the creature we found online is associated with legends from another part of the world. But I believe my fiance saw something that night. I do not know how to explain it, and he was convinced that whatever followed us intended to attack. Now, reports of unknown animals are often compared to creatures from established folklore. Those comparisons do not prove an identity, but they give witnesses a vocabulary for describing something they just cannot otherwise name. Now, the next witness used a word that seems almost impossible in a modern Arizona setting. They described the being as a centaur. Now, this account was related through a family connection and concerns 3 construction workers traveling east of Flagstaff near Leup. The encounter reportedly occurred approximately 20 miles outside of Flagstaff in an area marked by hills, cinder cones, and long descending stretch of highway. It was late at night, and the oldest of the 3 men was driving. The witness source states, one of my cousin's brother told me this story. He works in construction, and he told me about 3 men he works with. This happened east of Flagstaff on the road toward Leup, possibly around 20 miles outside of the city. The area contains numerous cinder cones and hills. There's a section of highway that descends along the long incline. The 3 men were driving out of Flagstaff late one night, and the oldest man behind the wheel. And as they traveled down the hill and reaching approximately the halfway point, something suddenly leaped into the center of the highway. All 3 men described it as a centaur, half man and half horse. They said the being was enormous, standing approximately 7 to 8 feet tall. It had long hair, a hard and hateful-looking face, and it held a wooden club in one hand. Now, the creature did not appear confused, lost, or startled by the vehicle. It appeared angry. The witnesses described it as mean and evil. The driver panicked and swerved off the highway. The truck rolled. All 3 men managed to crawl from the wreckage, but the older driver began suffering what appeared to be a heart attack. They called 911 and were transported to Flagstaff Medical Center. Now, they did not tell the medical personnel what they had caused the crash because they believed no one would accept their account. The older man eventually recovered, and afterward, the 3 witnesses repeatedly discussed what they had seen. Each man gave the same description, and each man remained convinced that the being was a centaur. Now, my cousin later spoke with Navajo medicine man and asked him about the creature, and according to my cousin, the medicine man told him that the story was true. He repeatedly said that 7 of these centaur beings had been seen over the years. He also said that the long-haired one described by the witnesses was the evil or aggressive one. I had heard similar stories when I was younger, but I never knew what to make of them. And after hearing what happened to those 3 men, I began taking these stories more seriously. Now, my cousin said that all 3 witnesses remained traumatized by the encounter. They swore they would never again travel that highway at night. Now, an unexplained figure standing in a highway is frightening enough, and a figure that appears capable of flight presents an entirely different mystery. Our next account occurred in a residential neighborhood near Phoenix, where 3 members of the same family saw an enormous humanoid form pass directly in front of them from in front of their dining room window. On May 21st, 2014, at approximately 7:30 in the evening, a husband and wife and their 17-year-old daughter were eating dinner at their home in Laveen, Arizona. They were seated near a large sliding glass door overlooking the backyard. The witness states, without warning, something enormous passed directly in front of the glass. My daughter noticed it first. She said that from the corner of her eye, she saw a large brown mass swoop past the window. She couldn't make out any specific features, but whatever it was appeared large enough to momentarily cover most of the visible window area. I saw it at nearly the same time, and at first it also appeared to me as a brown mass. And as I turned toward it, however, I thought I saw what looked like a pair of long, powerful legs descending past the window. The figure swooped downward toward the spray from the backyard sprinklers and continued west. My wife had the clearest view because she had been facing the sliding glass door directly. She said that what passed the window looked like a human figure in flight. Now, according to her, the body was dark brown and positioned horizontally as if the person were lying face down in the air with both arms held tightly along the side of the body. She estimated that the figure was approximately 6 to 7 feet tall or long. What made the sighting even more extraordinary was its wingspan. She believed the wings extended to at least twice the length of the body. The moment it disappeared from view, I jumped up, ran to the sliding door, and rushed outside. I searched the backyard and the surrounding sky, but I could not locate the figure. I also saw no large bird or other animal that might have explained what the three of us had witnessed. Now, later that night, my wife and I heard something else. From somewhere in the backyard came an unmistakable sound of large wings flapping. I looked through the bedroom window but saw nothing unusual. The sound did not stop after that night. For nearly a month following the sighting, we occasionally heard heavy flapping noise coming from the backyard. And each time we attempted to locate the source, we were never able to see whatever was making them. We never witnessed the flying figure again. And to this day, we have no explanation of what passed directly in front of our home that evening. Now, the three family members witnessed the initial object, but the mystery continued through the repeated sounds from the backyard. Now, our next witness was alone in his observation. He was riding through northern Arizona on a school bus when a humanoid figure emerged from the desert, matched the speed of the vehicle, and appeared to transform before his eyes. Now, the witness grew up in a small northern Arizona town located between Paiute Reservation to the north and the Navajo Nation to the south. His high school had been an average enrollment of approximately 80 students. Because nearby competition was limited, the school's athletic teams frequently traveled between 5 to 10 hours to play other schools. Now, on this particular night, the basketball team was returning home after a distant game. The school could not afford hotel rooms, so the students faced an overnight journey lasting nearly 12 hours. So the witness states, I was the only male senior on the basketball team that season. After finishing our game, we boarded our old school bus, which everyone called Big Blue, and started the long trip home. About 2 hours later, sometime between 2 o'clock in the morning, sometime around 2 o'clock in the morning, we entered the reservation. Nearly everyone on the bus was asleep. I was seated directly behind the driver when I noticed something unusual. And as soon as we crossed onto the reservation land, the driver accelerated. The bus was soon traveling close to 85 miles an hour. That immediately caught my attention. In all the years I had traveled with him, I had never known this driver to seriously exceed the speed limit. And for some reason, I could not fall asleep. I eventually moved toward the back of the bus and stared through the window at the empty desert. The landscape was illuminated by a bright full moon. There was nothing outside except open ground, sagebrush, rocks, and distant shadows. But then I saw movement. A figure was running across the desert toward the highway at an angle as though it were trying to intercept the bus. Now, at first, It was too far away to identify. But as it came closer, I realized that it had the shape of a human being. What terrified me was that it was keeping pace with the bus. Now, we were traveling approximately 85 miles an hour, yet this figure continued gaining on us, racing over the uneven desert terrain without slowing down. And as it approached the edge of the highway, I could finally see its face. It appeared to be painted vertically, one half black and the other half white. Its eyes reflected the light with an unnatural glow similar to the eyes of an animal caught in the spotlight. My first thought was immediate. Oh my God, it's a skinwalker. The figure reached the roadside and continued running beside the bus, leaping over sagebrush and rocks while staring directly at me. The moment our eyes met, I found that I could not look away. It felt as though an invisible force was holding my head in place. I couldn't turn, close my eyes, or break contact with it. The figure smiled. The grin stretched impossibly wide, nearly from ear to ear, revealing crooked, yellow, pointed teeth. I became violently nauseated. I was panicking, but I could not move or call out to anyone. Then the figure began to change. While still keeping pace with the bus, it collapsed forward onto all fours. I could see its body contorting. Its bones appeared to crack and reform beneath the skin. Hair began spreading across the body. The transformation happened in only a few seconds. Where the human-like figure had been, there was now a coyote. The animal continued running beside the bus for a moment, then suddenly turned and disappeared back into the desert. The instant it vanished, whatever had been holding me had released its grip. I ran into the bathroom in the back of the bus and vomited. I did not tell my teammates or coaches what had happened because I was afraid they'd think I was crazy. Later, I confided with a Navajo friend. She took the encounter seriously and told me I needed to receive a blessing from the local community leader whom I knew. On the next school day, I saw him in the parking lot. He walked directly toward me, quietly spoke several words in Navajo, and waved a feathered ceremonial object around me. He did not ask me what had happened, and when he finished, he turned, climbed into his truck, and drove away. I never saw the figure again. Maybe that's because I eventually moved away from the area. Even now, whatever I need to travel south, I avoid that particular route. I go around it, a long way around it. Now, the witness interpreted the figure as a skinwalker, but he was never able to verify what he had actually seen. Now, the next account also occurred near the Navajo Nation and involved 3 longtime friends. This time, the creature appeared to have a direct connection with one of them. In 2013, the witness traveled to Arizona to visit relatives living near the edge of the Navajo Nation. He had spent time in the region as a child and still knew several people there. Now, one evening, he went out with 2 old friends. To protect their identities, he referred to them as Jim and Sue. Now, late that night, he offered to drive them home. The witness states, Sue had fallen asleep on the right side of the back seat. Jim was sitting behind me on the left and was still awake. As we drove towards Jim's house, he suddenly pointed towards something moving along the side of the road. At first, it looked like an unusually large coyote, walking on all fours. It was briefly illuminated by the headlights before moving back into the darkness. I slowed down and switched on the high beams. What we saw immediately disturbed both of us. I brought the car to a stop and we woke Sue so she could look at it and confirm that we were not imagining things. The creature was still moving slowly along the roadside. When Sue looked through the window, she froze. At that exact moment, the animal stopped, turned toward the car, and rose onto its hind legs. It did not struggle to stand like a dog attempting to balance upright. Its movements appeared natural, as though it was accustomed to walking on 2 legs. Jim and I had several seconds to study it. The creature resembled the traditional image of a werewolf, although its features were not completely canine. Its face appeared to be a disturbing combination of human and wolf. The muzzle was shorter and more rounded than that of a normal wolf, with a dark canine nose extended slightly from the face. Its mouth contained sharp, visible teeth. Its hands and feet ended in long claws that appeared to be permanently extended. For a few moments, curiosity overpowered our fear. We simply stared at it. Then Sue suddenly screamed at me to drive. She continued screaming until the creature was completely out of sight. I eventually pulled over so she could calm down. Once she could speak clearly, Jim and I asked why she reacted so strongly. She told us that she knew what the creature was. She refused to explain how she knew, but she said it wanted to harm her and anyone connected to her family. Now, when we arrived at Sue's home, Jim and I walked her to the front door. Neither of us felt comfortable allowing her to approach the house alone. We asked whether she would be safe. She replied that she would tell her father that he was back. She then said her father would protect her just as he always had. Now, Jim and I exchanged worried looks, but Sue went inside and we returned to the car. We resumed driving toward Jim's house. A short time later, we saw the creature again. This time it was traveling in the opposite direction. It appeared to be heading towards Sue's home. We did not know whether it was the same creature or another one, but we believed our friend might be in danger. We decided to turn around and follow it. And as soon as we changed direction, the creature rose onto its hind legs again and faced us. Then it released a deep guttural roar. The sound was so powerful that animalistic that it seemed to vibrate through the car. And at the same moment, the radio went dead. Then the engine shut off. Jim and I both screamed. I frantically tried to restart the car as the creature began moving towards us. It stepped into the roadway and continued approaching. And by the time it had covered approximately half the distance between us, the engine finally started. I slammed my foot on the accelerator and drove away as fast as the car would go. I did not slow down until we were several miles away. Only then did I realize that I had passed Jim's house nearly 3 miles earlier. We did not see the creature again that night. Later, I drove past Sue's home one more time, and from the road, everything seemed normal. There were no broken windows, damaged doors, or other obvious signs of an attack. I never witnessed anything similar since. And I do not know what the creature was. The only term I can use to describe it is a skinwalker, although I cannot confirm that interpretation. Whatever it was, it appeared hostile. It also seemed to have a specific connection to Sue or her family. I have remained in contact with both friends. Sue refuses to discuss what happened. And whenever I ask whether everything is all right, she gives the same brief response. Things are fine. Jim has been unable to get any further explanation from her. Even after all these years, I remain concerned for her and for the people living in that area. Now, the first 7 reports involve creatures, humanoids, or figures encountered on the ground or in the air. Now, our final case is somewhat different. It occurred in daylight. The witness observed the event from an elevated position with an unobstructed view. The encounter reported to last several minutes and included a large structured craft, 2 apparent occupants, physical interaction with crops, rapid acceleration, and a possible independent witness. On June 15, 2017, an electrical worker was repairing overhead lines near a substation along Old Highway 80 outside of Buckeye, Arizona. It was approximately 4:30 in the afternoon. The witness was working about 35 feet above the ground in a bucket of a utility truck when a large shadow passed over him. He looked up. The witness states, "I saw an enormous object flying overhead. The craft was cigar-shaped, gunmetal gray, and at least 60 feet long. It was almost completely silent. The only noise I heard was a faint rushing or whooshing sound as it descended toward the field across the highway. Now, from my elevated position, I had an unobstructed view as the object came down. It appeared to stop a few feet above the field rather than resting directly on the ground. It simply remained there, hovering silently. For approximately 3 minutes, nothing happened. Then a section of the craft open roughly 10 feet behind what appeared to be its nose. A ramp extended toward the ground. About a minute later, two figures emerged. At first, they looked like small children. However, as I watched them descend the ramp, I realized that their proportions were unlike those of normal human beings. Each figure stood approximately 4 foot tall. Their bodies were extremely thin, almost emaciated, with frail arms and legs. Their heads were disproportionately large and appeared almost too heavy for their narrow bodies to support. Both wore dark blue one-piece uniforms, and the garments extended to the wrists and ankles. The first figure walked down the ramp and waited near the bottom until the second joined it. They then moved together toward the crops growing in the field. Now, I was positioned approximately 40 to 50 yards away across the highway. From the bucket truck, I could see them moving between the plants. They appeared intensely interested in the vegetation and seemed to be collecting or examining samples. They apparently had not noticed me. Trying to obtain a better view, I slowly raised the bucket a little higher. I continued observing them for approximately 6 minutes as they walked through the field. Then a tan-colored SUV approached along the highway. The driver apparently saw the craft because the vehicle suddenly came to a screeching halt. The driver then shifted into reverse, apparently attempting to get another look at the object in the field. The noise and the movement immediately attracted the attention of the two figures. They looked toward the highway. That was when they also noticed me in the bucket truck. Both figures turned and ran toward the craft at an unbelievable speed. I had never seen anything move that quickly. They raced up the ramp and disappeared through the opening. The hatch closed immediately behind them. Once it was sealed, there was no visible outline, seam, or indication that an opening had ever existed. The surface of the craft appeared completely smooth. The object then rose rapidly from the field, throwing a large cloud of dust into the air below it. It stopped and hovered above the ground for approximately 10 seconds. Then it accelerated toward the west. It moved faster than any aircraft I had ever seen and disappeared from the view within moments. I remained in the bucket, staring in the direction it had gone, until the driver of the SUV called up to me. "Did you see that thing too?" I shouted back that I had. I lowered the bucket and climbed out of the truck and spoke with the man for approximately 10 minutes. We were both stunned by what we had witnessed. I had seen many unusual things while working in the Arizona desert, but I had never seen anything like that. It was the first unidentified craft I'd ever witnessed. It was also the first time I'd ever seen the beings that may have been operating one. And when I told my wife that evening, she looked at me as though I'd lost my mind. She suggested that I might have seen a helicopter landing and perhaps mistaken soldiers for the figures in the field. But this wasn't a helicopter. Those figures were not soldiers. I know what I witnessed that afternoon. That's why I decided to submit this report. So we had 8 reports from one state: a massive wolf-like animal watched by 2 witnesses near the Arizona border, an 8-foot hairy humanoid that ran beside a moving car and reached for his door, a scaly dog-like aquatic creature that followed 2 people away from an isolated fish hatchery, a centaur-like being that allegedly caused a devastating highway accident east of Flagstaff, an enormous flying humanoid seen by 3 family members in Laveen, and a human-like figure that chased a school bus before apparently transforming into a coyote. A canine humanoid that seemed to recognize and target one particular woman, and a silent cigar-shaped craft whose apparent occupants entered an agricultural field outside of Buckeye in broad daylight. So what are we supposed to make of these accounts? Arizona contains numerous environments capable of concealing ordinary wildlife. Darkness, distance, fear, fatigue, and unfamiliar terrain can influence perception. Some reports may involve natural animals seen under unusual circumstances. But certain details remain difficult to dismiss. Multiple witnesses offered matching descriptions. Several creatures appeared capable of keeping pace with fast-moving vehicles. Some displayed apparent intelligence, strategic behavior, or focused interest in particular witnesses. The Laveen family continued hearing heavy wing beats for weeks after the initial sighting. The Buckeye witness described a prolonged daylight observation from an elevated position, followed by an apparent confirmation from another motorist. There's no physical evidence presented in these reports that allows us to determine exactly what occurred. We are left with testimony. For the witnesses, however, these are not campfire stories or distant legends. They are immediate, frightening experiences that altered the way they viewed the desert, the highway, the mountains, and the darkness beyond their homes. Perhaps some of these mysteries will eventually be explained. Others may remain permanent, tied to the lonely roads and isolated landscapes of Arizona. This has been Unexplained Arizona. Now, please subscribe to Phantoms of Monster Radio, activate notifications, share these presentations with others interested in the unexplained. And if you experience something unexplained in Arizona or anywhere else, I encourage you to document every detail you remember. Even details that initially seem insignificant may become important when compared with other reports. And you can submit your account to Phantoms of Monsters. Witness confidentiality and anonymity will be respected when requested. If you send a chat donation this evening, your consideration is very much appreciated. Your support helps us continue documenting witness testimony, investigating unusual incidents, and preserving these accounts for future research. So, saying that, let's start the Q&A. Any questions, folks? Dynamic, the Mongolian monster is Arizona's version of Sasquatch. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Pretty well known, too. I had possible Mongolian sightings, but none that I could really determine to be what, the same creature a lot of people have seen and reported. Lala Bright, could Arizona's Dogman and Humanoid reports represent different versions of familiar earthly life existing in another realm or reality? Well, of course. I mean, there are enough sightings to believe that these things are regularly seen. The Dogman, I guess you can say different regions have a different type of description. Of course, being in that area near the Navajo and other nations, Indian nations, the Skinwalker thing always comes up, but though 9 times out of 10, it's nothing to do with the Skinwalker. So, yeah, I mean, it's a possibility what you asked. Imnota Hulk, do you have any info on domes of light? Domes of light. In what context? You talking about just UFOs or saucer-shaped lights or what? Dagnama, what part of Arizona are Skinwalkers in? Mostly northern. The Navajo Nation takes up most of northern to northwest Arizona and goes down into the Chuska Mountains area. It's an area, I mean, that reservation's huge. It runs into New Mexico. It's got a few decent sized cities in it, but it's a huge area. And it's got mountains and plateaus and mesas and everything. A lot of rivers through it. So a lot of room there, but that's where it's mostly located at. Saw different colors that were different sizes. Oh, no, I don't. I really don't. Or can't think of offhand. Lala Bright, could UFO secrecy reflect the kind of universal non-interference rule? And if so, who or what would enforce it? Well, that's a big question there. Uh, your guess is as good as mine. I can't really say who would enforce it, but we're kind of at the whims of whoever or whatever um, is involved with tracking this stuff and eventually, doubtfully, but eventually disclosing it. But I would guess probably the United States Air Force would probably be the first place to start because they seem to get most of it. And they have all the old reports and everything too. So they, of course, have all the information. Sir Wolf, hi Lon. The centaur reports seem very odd. Do you get many? What do you think? I've had several from Navajo Nation. Yep. It's something that has been seen several times. I have talked to several residents of the res, and many of them have described the same thing. I even had a couple of elders tell me distinctly that they had seen these things. So I do have a report from Leonard Dan, as well as from what J.C. Johnson had told me about and some of the sightings they've had. It's an older report, but I can probably post it in some time and update it. But no, centaur reports are not unusual. We have had several over the years. Sir Wolf, they cloned Dolly the sheep in the 80s. Do you think they're playing God and creating centaurs and dogman? Who knows? Who knows? You've heard the same speculation that I had. Look, there's a lot of facilities in the Southwest, in Arizona and New Mexico. We don't know what's going on there. There have been conjecture about underground facilities that are connected together throughout the American Southwest. So, but your guess is as good as mine. I have no idea what's going on, but some of the stuff that people see, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like this would be natural, and it may have some involvement with others. So, I don't know. Lala Bright, why would a technologically advanced intelligence keep taking biological samples from Earth over and over again? Well, maybe that's not what they're here for. I have thought for a long time that these so-called biological samples and such are used not for the most part, hybridization and other experiments with humans. I think it's, again, and I have talked about this countlessly, that their agenda is to find and recover what they have lost through their evolution as humans, maybe closer to us. I think these beings, look, I think the humans are a universal species. I really do. And I think all these civilizations eons ago and that continue on have all either, I don't know, metamorphosized or evolved from humans, or maybe there's something else to it. I don't know. All I can do is tell you my speculation through the evidence I have received over the years. And it's all anecdotal, so I have no positive or no physical evidence to really make a determination what's going on. It's something I've been thinking about for the last 45 years. So, we're going to have to keep doing that for a while until we finally figure out what is going on. Lala Bright, In the Skinwalker type encounters near the Navajo Nation, have witnesses ever reported these creatures copying human behavior rather than simply acting like animals? Well, first of all, the Skinwalker is a human. It's a witch. It's a Navajo witch, usually male, but they can be both. It usually involves, according to the lore of the Navajo Nation, it involves a curse, a revenge type thing, where it would just certain people seem to be cursed for whatever reason, or they did something, and either someone has this witch following them or making life miserable for them. It is, by lore, a manifestation and a physical changing being or ship-shaping being through magic. So take it for what it's worth, but that's the story. And it has nothing really to do with any type of regular creature or regular animal or even a cryptid. I guess you could consider it a cryptid, but if it's some type of manifestation or something that has changed or shapeshifted, I would put that under humanoid more than anything else, regardless of what it looks like to humans. Anything else, folks? Okay. Well, I want to again thank everyone for joining me this evening, and I'm grateful for your continued interest and support of the channel. So now, look, I next Wednesday is an Ask Lon show for the Fams and Monsters Insiders. So people who are members of the channel, they can tune in 9:00 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday night, and I'll answer any questions you've got. Also, next Friday night, we're not going to be doing a state show. This is going to be an interview. Rissa Miller's coming back in, and we're going to be talking about haunted Ellicott City and the area around it and all of the legends and such that are associated with it. So we got that to look forward to. That'll be interesting. As well, let's see what else I got going on. I don't know. I can't think of anything offhand, but yeah. So next week's going to be a 2-show week, and please join us. So until the next time, please remain observant, trust your instincts, and remember that the world around us may be far stranger than what we've been led to believe. So have a nice evening. Have a great weekend. See you next Wednesday or Friday. So have a good night.